Hoi hoi, welcome to Head Games, the science and psychology of sports. I'm Dr. Bret Levine, joined as always by Dr. Ben Rosenberg. Ben, how are you?
I'm good, but I'm mostly concerned about your wet shirt. What is happening?
I am not I'm really nervous.
I'm really nervous. We do have a sick interview today, so you could be nervous about that, I guess.
I know. No, I pulled it out of the washer and hopefully it'll dry before the interview that we do have today, which is awesome. We are talking with Connor O'Neill. He's a Mets minor league pitcher, and he was featured recently in an ESPN article about how minor league baseball players are adapting to COVID and finding work because the minor league baseball season got canceled. They aren't paying their players very much at all, so they're scrambling to find work.
Yeah.
And their skill set is limited to baseball, and baseball isn't happening. So what do you do? How do you find work? And I think I think he will be a great guest for just in general, but I think he's a good fit for today's episode, which is about grit, that that secret sauce of passion and perseverance. And I think you're going to talk about it in just a second.
Indeed.
Ahoy, ahoy. I want to get in real quickly and just touch on some news. We were talking last episode about the effect of not having fans for both the NHL and NBA playoffs and what that's going to mean. And to summarize, the gist of it is that either traveling or not traveling, having home court or home ice advantage, and or the presence of fans affects the score at the end of the game. And I don't think that's surprising to anybody. And in the NHL over the last 6 seasons, the difference is by 0.3 goals for every home game. And that's basically a small effect that we summarize that, like, it doesn't have much of an effect, but it is something. I think it's interesting. And for the NBA, I had calculated over the last 6 seasons, it was like 3.25, but we had seen better, more qualified research than myself that said it was
so, right?
Yeah. And so it might be closer to like 3.5. And that's missing. And that's going to be interesting. I think we talked a little bit about this. We didn't get into it, but we said there's probably going to be some upsets. And the Ringer goes into this a hell of a lot better than we did, but there might be some upsets that we might see because that higher seed does not have the advantage of more home games. And with more home games, you have more of the fan or the home court or the lack of travel in your favor. So just real quick, I just want to go back and look at some of the scores. First of all, those Flames that I was cheering for have been eliminated by the Stars.
Sad.
I don't think there's any. The Canucks are the only Canadian team left, I believe.
Dang. What happened to your Maple Leafs, bro?
My Maple Leafs. What happened to my Sharks, really? So it's interesting, just speaking of upsets, over the last 6 seasons, when you look at the seed differential from the first round being only 3 points. So, 3 seeds or less. So like the 3 versus the 6 is the biggest gap. So closer teams that are more or less closer. There is 10 of 25 upsets. So 40% of the time, those closer seeds upset. This season, thus far for the first round, looking at the 4 and the 5, the 3 and the 6, those are four different series. 2 of those 4 were upsets. So technically it was higher this year. 50% of those seeds that were closer were upset. And we talk about that effect, that like small effect, and I don't know if it had much of an influence, but it is interesting that we see a higher percentage of upsets in the first round without the presence of travel, without the presence of home ice, and without the presence of the fans there.
You're basically at chance right now if you're looking at 50%. If you're removing those things out of the equation, it's a toss up. Who's going to win?
Well, if two teams are equal, then it is. But we were talking about this feeling of like collective efficacy last episode, the feeling of like we can do it, probably in large part because there's 20,000 fans screaming for you that are no longer there. And so it does, it might neutralize maybe more than we had calculated. I don't know, but it's a small effect in hockey and we're seeing more upsets. It's going to be really interesting with the NBA because at 3.5 points, it basically cooks out to a bigger chance of upset. However, there's very few upsets in the NBA. Like usually it's like the 5 over the 4 and maybe
unlikely.
Yeah, and like maybe the 6 over the 3. I think there was like 2 6 over 3 upsets in the last 6 seasons, and one of them might have been to the Raptors. Yikes.
Raps are good this year, though, man. Watch out.
They look good. Yeah, Celtics Raptors might be the next. We don't know yet. The Raptors play tonight.
It will be
against the Nets, but more or less
Raptors are gonna wax the fucking floor with them.
Probably be Raptors Celtics next round. Yeah. But we might see some upsets nonetheless in NBA playoffs as well because of that home court.
I mean, look, I would look directly at the Clippers. Like, I'm not a Clippers hater. I'm not a Lakers hater. I could really care less about either LA team. I do think it's kind of funny, though, to see the Clippers like being this, in many people's mind, overwhelming favorite. They got Kawhi. They're stacked, so to speak. And now, like, they're tied 2-2 with the Mavs, who have lost one of their stars. And that is interesting because, at least in part, granted, this recent game 4 would have been in Dallas if we're playing in kind of real times. So maybe you're not seeing the effect of fans or lack of fans exactly, but the Clippers just look like they look tired, man. They don't look like they have really like any pep in their step. And that collective efficacy piece just seems to be missing for them. And that seemed to really play a role in that loss of that game. Dude, they were up by 20 in that game, and Mavs come back and Luka hits this crazy shot. So, as speaking of upset, so we'll see what happens. I don't think the Mavs are going to win the series, but even to see them taking a couple games, I think is a little bit surprising.
I mean, we try to bake these things down to like point differential and things like that, but there could be other things at play. You're right. I think there's other stuff that maybe is difficult to measure or understand, especially from a psychological, stance. So that'll be cool. It'll be cool to see if there's upsets, and upsets, make things fun for sure. Let's get into grit because we have a great interview today. Do you want to give a little bit of background about what grit is and kind of just a brief history about it and kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to really, really, really go back with grit, one of the founders of the field of psychology, William James, talked about something like grit. He didn't call it grit, but in his seminal textbook in 1903 or something, he was talking about something like grit. And it sort of laid dormant. I mean, people talk about all these different things that help folks succeed. And a lot of the research for many years centered around things like people's IQ or other kind of traits that people possess that allow them to be successful. And the paradigm was really shifted by a psychologist named Angela Duckworth, who's really the most strongly associated with grit. She's a professor at UPenn, and she's received like a MacArthur Genius Grant and all this shit. I mean, she's like way more brilliant than we are. But anyway, she wrote a book in, I think, 2007. Does that sound right? Maybe it was more recent. The book was more recent. She wrote some articles about grit in the mid-2005, 2007, whatever. Wrote a book in the last 5 years about grit. Basically, the idea is that, as you mentioned before, grit is this kind of combination of passion and perseverance. And it's really, and I'm just going to read a brief quote because I think she puts it really nicely. This is from an article by Duckworth and Gross, one of her collaborators. Grit is the tenacious pursuit of a dominant, superordinate goal despite setbacks. So in other words, grit is all about people going after what they really want to get, goals that are really important to them, particularly when they're faced with adversity. This is the ability to stick with it, even though things are trying to block you from getting to the goals that are important to you. And as you mentioned, man, I mean, this is going to be really relevant as we talk to Connor in a bit, to hear about his story and some of the things I'm sure that he has to share with us about the perseverance that he's presumably had to exhibit in order to stay on this path, and probably that a lot of minor league ball players have had to exhibit.
Yep. I think just based on the definition of grit, you probably have described every single professional athlete's journey.
For sure.
I'm setting it a goal to be a professional athlete, and the amount of perseverance that they'd have to endure to get there is probably a good study on grit, as well as every championship team. Like, talk about a goal, like, every team, every, individual player as well. I want to win a championship. I want to, inscribe my name into my given sports history. So Yeah, I mean, I think grit touches. This is a piece of human psychology, and it touches all of us in some way about
Yeah.
whatever anyone has a goal that they're going towards. But it really does seem to speak to sports, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, what's cool and what's interesting about the research on grit is that it shows that grit is predictive of people being successful above and beyond all these other factors that typically you associate with success, things like IQ or just raw, talent or skill level.
Mhm.
Grit predicts people's success beyond those things. And so it really does seem to be, you call it a secret sauce or special sauce. It really does seem to be something unique about grit and the ability to persevere towards superordinate or long-term goals that makes it really important.
Yeah, it's also, and you mentioned, William James. William James.
William James.
I
Love that
believe
guy, man.
that's it. My name is William James. I'm the founder of psychology. um, you mentioned like 1900,
Yeah.
which for a lot of other sciences is like really new, and I think
Yeah.
grit especially speaks to the newness of psychology.
Hmm.
Duckworth, I believe, was doing this research around grit recently,
Yeah.
and it's only recently that all of this cool stuff has come to light, meaning
Yeah.
we can reliably and with some level of validity measure grit, possibly
Hmm.
manipulate grit, and
Absolutely.
understand it at a deeper level. So
Yeah.
it's really new. And that's, I mean, it speaks to the excitement of grit, but it speaks to the excitement of psychology as a field as well, is that a
Yeah.
lot of this stuff, a lot of the understanding about human psychology at an individual and a group
Yeah.
level is still kind of unknown. And like,
Yeah.
it's cool. I think it's cool. And I think that's like in large part why we're sitting here talking to each other,
No
even though
doubt.
we're a hell of a lot dumber than Angela Duckworth, talking about
Way.
her topic, her
Way.
theory, and
Yeah. Check her
trying to
out,
be.
man. I mean, if folks are interested, she has some awesome, well-watched TED Talks, and she's an engaging, interesting speaker who has obviously, found something that's really worthwhile to investigate. And
Yep.
it's cool to see her talk about it. She obviously she has a shitload of grit. Put it that way.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
And you know who else has probably a shitload of good is our guest Connor O'Neill. Let's get to it. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with him. Our guest today is our new friend Connor O'Neill. He's a pitcher in the Mets minor league organization and was featured recently in an ESPN article focusing on how minor league baseball players are coping with the canceled season and living on a below the poverty line salary. Connor, welcome to Head Games.
Thank you for having me, you guys. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
We would love to get into like the psychology of everything that's been going on and what you've been going through and how other minor leaguers are adapting to this new environment. But before we get started, given that you're a Mets minor leaguer, how often do you get asked about Tim Tebow?
Oh, I mean, every time I do an interview, actually, is like that's definitely one of the questions. Yeah, no, he was actually my bus mate whenever we would go, because we're in Port St. Lucie, so we would go down to West Palm all the time for spring training games. Whenever he got sent down from the big league side. So yeah, he was my bus mate last spring training, and he's a good dude. He sweats a lot.
Sweats a lot.
And he's got an Adidas deal, so he's got about four boxes of shoes every day. He shows
Jesus, dude.
It's pretty unreal, but he's a good guy. I think he gets made fun of a little bit on online, but yeah, he's a good-hearted person, and he's nice.
Nice.
I mean, obviously, a hell of an athlete, right? If he can be that good of a quarterback, make it to the NFL, he was arguably a good quarterback in the NFL. But I can't. Who am I to say that?
Yeah.
And then to even be playing in the minor leagues at all, playing professional baseball at all, like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, he's a freak athlete. There's no way around that. We have this. You guys know like the beep test from high school?
Oh, I remember the beep test. Yeah.
But we like the Mets. We do one, or at least we did one last year. And so all the guys that scored the highest on it were usually like the 17-year-old Dominican shortstops that are just crazy good at endurance running for whatever reason. And then Tim Tebow, so who's like 230 pounds of man. So yeah, he's pretty impressive to watch do just about anything not hitting.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thanks for the background on Tim Tebow, but you're the focus today. So tell us a little bit about yourself and, how did you get to where you are now?
So I grew up in Washington State, actually, born and raised. Walked on at a junior college in Arizona. Didn't have any offers from. Oh, I did get an offer from West Point. But they said that was based on character, so I didn't really know how to take that. Um, and yeah, so my brother was actually at a junior college in Arizona at the time. I had a tournament my senior year of high school down in Arizona. So my brother asked the pitching coach at his junior college, "Hey, please take a look at my little brother." So as a favor to my brother, pitching coach comes out, watches me throw. I'm throwing, humming 84, 86. And he says, "Hey, we don't have any scholarships available. So will you walk on?" And I was like, okay, I don't know what else I'm going to do. Like, it's the only option, really. And so I did it. And then again, when I was at Central Arizona, the junior college, Cal State Northridge was there recruiting my brother. And they saw me throw, and they're like, "You want to come to CSUN?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, let's do this again." So I followed my brother to CSUN. Nice. Ended up playing 3 years there. I was the closer all 3 years, sprinkled in a few starts. Junior year, I got drafted by the Tigers in the 32nd round. Got offered like 40 grand, didn't take it. Went back for my senior year, played pretty well. Got drafted in the 7th round.
Nice.
Got offered a whopping $10,000. Had to take it or not play anymore. Yeah, the slot amount is like 180 grand or something, but as a senior, you have, zero leverage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got 10 grand, signed with the Mets, and then got the ball rolling on pro ball.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So obviously the minors is difficult journey for a lot of people, as detailed in the article and as we'll touch on in a little bit. I mean, have you ever thought to yourself, like, what's next? Have you thought about changing gears at all with your career? Or are you still pretty like locked in on making ball work?
I think that most baseball players, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but most baseball players at some point when you get to at least pro baseball, that thought crosses your mind, like at least once a season, I would say, where you're just like, oh, life's got to be easier doing something else. But then you realize, like, well, what else would I be doing?
Yeah.
Go into coaching or get a regular job, which, when you go from baseball, like playing a kid's game, like we're not making a whole lot of money, but then you go and get a desk job. It's like, maybe that's not the way to go. You almost come to an understanding of what you don't want to do rather than what you do want to do. So yeah, it crosses my mind every now and then. But the overall feeling for most baseball players is that we're blessed to be able to get to be able to do what we get to do and get paid whatever we happen to get paid. And it's just not something that everybody can do. It's not something we can even do for a very long time,
Right.
So yeah, well, most people, unless there's family issues, financial issues, we're gonna play until we can't play anymore, until somebody says stop it,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the mindset with me, is that it is a roller coaster, but as long as you can come back to center and stay focused on getting better and be appreciative of what you get to do, it always, it gives you perspective, I guess.
Yeah. Has the injury and getting TJ affected that calculus for you at all, or is it kind of maintained the same?
I would say it's probably given me a better outlook, being able to take a step away from the game. And I'm actually interested to see this next year because I was forced to take a step away. Actually, everybody was forced to, outside the 16-man rosters. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see because baseball locker rooms are it's not serious, but it's some of the most negative atmosphere you'll ever be in. It's a game of failure. And that feeling of failure brings itself into the locker room. And it's a 140 game season in the minor leagues. It's not a happy place in that locker room all the time. And I think that plays into us just, we take it for granted every now and then. I'm really interested to see when we all do get back. What's the mindset? What's the outlook for the guys that, I wasn't going to play no matter what because of Tommy John, but for everyone else who was forced out this season because of coronavirus, are they going to have a newfound appreciation for what we get to do? Or is it going to be, a week of the newfound appreciation and then back to business as usual? Life sucks. I hate it here.
Yeah, coronavirus has certainly been a challenge for everybody, but the article really focused on, I think, the strains of yourself and other minor leaguers who during a regular season might have to take jobs during the off season, but especially now, focusing on yourself, like, you were working, the article talked about, previously working at LuLulemon during the off seasons, now looking for work, rehabbing, all of this that really kind of puts a strain on what life is normally like as a minor leaguer. You talk about being committed to the game and going until someone tells you to stop. So like today's episode is all about grit. It's that combination of passion and perseverance. So how do you persevere? What keeps you going?
Just probably mostly I would say how I was brought up, and that the idea that it's just going to be your own hard work, your own commitment that gets you there, and your own internal motivation, and I think that's what plays into doing whatever it takes to make something happen, for myself at least, especially right now where I'm having to hold myself accountable, going to PT every day. If I didn't go, who's going to know, right? But I'm going every day. I'm getting my workouts in. I'm looking for jobs, doing interviews for jobs and for, stuff like this. And so, I think mostly it's, stuff that's been instilled in me, and sort of how I got to watch my brother in high school, especially. Him and Michael Conforto, actually, in the state of Washington, they were the top 2 ranking prospects. My brother got drafted by the Yankees out of high school, actually. Damn. Didn't take it. And then, he ended up hurting his back later down the line, wasn't able to kind of keep going. And I do think that's another thing that motivates me, and also gives me an appreciation for what I'm able to do, because I've been afforded the physical ability to keep doing it. So, why wouldn't I? Not everybody can say that, obviously. My brother is a prime example. So yeah, that's definitely another thing that keeps me going. But yeah, it's a combination of a lot of things that I've sort of acquired over the years, and all of us do really, that keep us going, and especially in times when it's not easy to, But I will say that it's probably easier to keep going mentally right now when I know, I don't have to perform right now. It's a mental roller coaster. In season, and I tell my family and my girlfriend all the time, I'm probably more consistently happy when I'm not playing baseball. But when I am playing baseball and it's going well, I wish it wasn't this way, but it is, and it's going well. That's life to me, You're really living there. And I don't think a lot of people get to experience that as frequently as athletes do.
What is it about that experience, like that high of performing, that kind of keeps you going, that contributes to what we're talking about?
It's like it's hard to explain, but it definitely it keeps you going because you just want more of it. You know, you want more of it. Especially, and I think I really got to experience it in college mostly. As a closer, you know, I'm throwing two times a weekend and hopefully get a save, and the second you get that save, it's just like an indescribable feeling of joy. And, you know, you and your best friends just beat another group of men who are also best friends. There's something about that where you're like, yeah, baby. And it's just, you know, the culmination of all your hard work as a group coming together, and what you prepared for is to beat the opponent. And so yeah, it just feels good. But another thing I say all the time is pitching itself is kind of fun, but it's the moment immediately when you're done and you've done well that makes you want to keep doing it. You know, if there wasn't that feeling, you know, I don't think a lot of people would still be playing sports. But it's that feeling when you're done, and you've done well, and you were successful. That keeps you coming back for more.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a great point. I mean, as a shitty of a pitcher as I was, I can relate to that feeling as soon as you come out the game. Pitcher. Basically a rec league pitcher, but as soon as you come out, right, it's like you get on the bench. I would, don't tell my wife, throw a dip, and just like you just some kind of calmness comes over your body, I guess, and it's that feeling of like, all right, sweet, that's great, and now I'm done. The high is over. I can just kind of chill now.
Yeah, no, it's a weird feeling. I like it. Sometimes I have to like bring myself back to normal because, you know, nobody ever likes that guy that gets done pitching and they were good and successful. You know, they did their job, especially now in pro baseball. Like, that's your job, dude, your job. And then, you know, they're all of a sudden like way too happy and way too talkative and stuff like that. And that is a side effect of this. And then, you know, if they perform poorly, you know, they like shut down and they're angry. So my goal always is to however I'm feeling on the inside, for people to not be able to tell that. You know, from my demeanor, you shouldn't be able to tell how I did in the game, in my opinion. And I think teammates mostly are the ones that appreciate that, because, you know, you don't really enjoy being around a guy that is too up and down after their outings. But anyways, the feeling of it is exhilarating nonetheless. Yeah.
I mean, you made some really awesome points, and you sort of started to hit on this, and you also mentioned coaching before. So I want to switch gears just slightly and ask if you could provide any advice for aspiring pro baseball players or guys who are maybe just gotten drafted or about to get drafted that are going to be going into the minor leagues. Like, what would you tell them?
I mean, I would just say sort of what I needed to be told and continue to need to be told. You know, mostly it's my dad that tells me this, is that, you know, you belong there, you're there for a reason. And even if, you know, you're watching the big leagues or whatever, or you're a college kid watching minor league baseball, or high school watching college, and all the way down the line, having that understanding that you're not far off, or you may even already be there talent-wise. It's just you gotta wait your turn. But just understanding that, you know, you're maybe 1 or 2% away from being like them, or 2 or 3% away from dominating them, and then, okay, what's the next challenge? I would say that is the number one thing above, you know, any technical work that you can do. You know, there's no secret sauce for it, but I would say mentally that is something that everybody should probably work on, because I think especially at the higher levels, you know, you think, you know, I don't even know how I got here. I don't expect to get there. It's like, no, you need to understand that you're here for a reason, and you can get there so long as you keep working and keep getting better, but you're not far off. And so, yeah, that's just what I would tell pretty much anybody in any line of work really, I think is knowing that, if you put in the work, you can get there. Granted, the big leagues is kind of a different beast. You can be the hardest worker in the world. You may not get there though. There's nature. But yeah, no, by and large, I would say just understand that you belong wherever you're at is where you're meant to be, and don't think that people levels above you are absurdly better than you. They've just had more time to get better, and you will too. And if you put in the work in the right direction and with the right intent, then there's no reason you shouldn't get there.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. That really is. And I think it rings true as psychologists as well, as just, you put the work in, and, sometimes you may not be able to get there even if you do, but there's nothing, I think you put this well earlier, which is like, you're there for a reason and you have this opportunity. And I think you speak well to that, saying, I have my health and I have this opportunity and we should go for it. I empathize. So you mentioned in the article, and I empathize with you. You're no longer working at LuLulemon, and my family comes from, my parents had a retail clothing store, and during Christmas break, I'd have to go home. As soon as I was done with finals at UC Irvine, I'd drive the 6.5 hours back home and start working for another 3 weeks. And I totally empathize with the Trevor Bauer encounter, where people would come in and they were flustered and they were like, I just need to get something, and it's last minute. But my parents have since retired, so I empathize.
You're out of that business.
I empathize with not working retail anymore. But the focus of the article is really on work, and I think for a lot of people who are struggling to find work during COVID, have you been able to find some work yourself?
I'm sure trying. I think I probably I scroll on Indeed for like an hour every night, just hoping that something pops up. I have the notifications turned on for keywords like baseball or coaching or whatever, because that's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to use my knowledge that I've acquired, and I don't think selling pants is probably the best use of that. So yeah, I've been applying for stuff that I don't really want to do, but work is something I don't dislike. I enjoy working. I don't think work has to be a bad thing, so long as the people that I'm working with are enjoyable to be around. So I liked working at LuLulemon because all my coworkers mostly are really cool, laid back people.
Right.
It's just the people that would come in sometimes are like, and they're like, not Trevor Bauer, but the tourists that would come in, and especially in Hollywood, these people would come in and they you turn into this personal shopper.
Oh God.
And I'm sitting I'm getting yelled at from somebody that's in a changing room. Go grab me this, go grab me that. The whole time I'm thinking I'm 3 levels away from the major leagues and I'm doing this right now.
If only those people knew who were in the changing rooms.
It was a fireworks night, in South Carolina, and we had 10,000 fans there, none of whom know my name, but you feel important in those moments. And then 2 months later, you're getting yelled at to do this and that from somebody that doesn't even know you and really isn't even paying you anything.
Yeah.
I'm not getting commission. So it's just, I don't know. It's not a fun feeling. But it's something that a lot of us are more than willing to go through, in order to make ends meet and allow us the time to keep climbing up the ranks. So yeah, I don't dislike work by any means. I enjoyed working at LuLulemon. People that work there. And so, yeah, I've been applying to jobs. I actually have an interview on Tuesday for an organization that they do a couple things, but they work to help recovering drug and alcohol addicts, and they sort of want to surround them with positive people and people that are good examples.
Cool.
And then another thing they do is hire youth mentors. So that's the one I was more interested in because I, you know, I have been a kid, so I do know that's like. I haven't been addicted to anything, so I can't relate to that, and I really don't know if I am the best person to handle that. I'll do my best if they want to hire me for that. I got no problem trying. I might need a little coaching in it, but yeah. So I've been searching. I had a coaching job lined up,
Right.
and then the position got turned into a volunteer spot. So
yeah, that sucks.
Hopefully, if I make big bucks, I can volunteer my time to coach baseball. But until then, I can't really afford to do that.
Yeah. It takes a lot of patience, and I think it's pretty humbling to, like you said, be basically, I mean, a professional baseball player, whether people know you or not, is being paid to play the game. And then a few weeks later going back and, running clothes for comedians or whomever might be in the changing room. So I think it says a lot about your character, number one, to be, to have to do this but to be okay with it and to say that work is work and you're happy to be working. There was some confusion, I think, in the article that there was a little bit of a mix-up that I think led to some confusion on Twitter. But you said that you had ran into Trevor Bauer at the LA location, but it was actually Carlsbad, and it might have led to some other like mix-ups. Is there anything you want to clear up about that article?
Yeah. So just Anthony Oliveri was the writer for it, for the article. He called me up. We did an hour-long interview. A small fraction of it was about who I've met, in my years at LuLulemon. And so, I had told him at the locations that I worked at, who I met, how it went, stuff like that. But that's not really what the article itself was about. But anyways, the decision was made to use the Trevor Bauer part. And then another decision was made to make the writing in first person. So there were just so many moving parts that I understand how it's easy to get things mixed up, to be misleading. And I do think that the article, I thought, it did show Bauer in a semi-negative light, even though that was the conversation that took place. The information that I was given about him shopping for his brother, that came from a third party, coworker that made the introduction. And then the location that it took place in, I think he just opted to say, I worked in Hollywood for 2 years rather than say I worked in Carlsbad for 1 year and then Hollywood another year, just for the writing purposes, it doesn't look that good. But that's the truth of it, is that it was Christmas Eve in Carlsbad. He came in, a coworker greeted him, found out he was a baseball player, and then introduced us. And I was like, cool, I play baseball too. He said, cool, what do you got in store? And I said, not a whole lot, it's Christmas Eve, what do you want? And that was about it. And then I did check him out at the cash register. He did give me his information for the 25% discount that athletes get. So I know it was him. It's just in the story there's these two inaccuracies that people think debunk the whole thing. It's like, what is there to debunk? There were inaccuracies. Oops, mistakes happen. But we met. What else do you want to know? That's not what the story's about. So that was frustrating to sort of have to deal with that, knowing that it's going to take the integrity away from the story itself that had nothing to do with Trevor Bauer. So I would just say that the most frustrating part of it all was not really, I don't care about how, people believe me. I'm like, bummer, I know I'm going to tell the truth. I have nothing to gain from it. Trevor Bauer has nothing to gain from lying, I don't think. So it was just like a bunch of moving parts, a bunch of miscommunication. It was just really stupid. And, I got 600 followers and he has 300,000. So I was kind of wearing it a little bit online. And it's stuff that I just don't like. I don't care about. I can't bring myself to care about anything that isn't real human interaction or even, people that I care about that are in my circle. And if you're outside of that, I'm going to be absurdly nice to you probably, given that you're just nice to me back. And that's all I ask. But that's the stuff that I care about is the real world. Anything, any online interview that's at least typed out, or Twitter, it's hard to convey the truth, convey what you really mean, and things can get mixed up. So yeah, I really don't care about it. I really hope Trevor Bauer doesn't care about it, because he's got a lot more stuff to worry about than I do. So if I don't care about it, he definitely shouldn't care about it.
For sure.
So yeah, it was, apologies to Trevor, I guess, for the article that I didn't write, but what are you going to do? I didn't lose any sleep over it. I think I got 10 hours last night, so.
Good.
Damn. That sounds, we both have toddlers, so that sounds really nice right about now. So to switch gears and to a sort of a fun last question, we've been talking a lot, Brett and I, about baseball's unwritten rules. I'm sure you have thoughts on this. It's been a lot kind of going on in the, blogosphere about this. So if you have a 7-run lead, Fernando Tatis Jr. comes up, it's 3-0, bases are loaded, and he takes you deep for a grand slam. Question is, would you hit him in the face next time he comes to bat?
I don't think I would ever hit anybody in the face for any reason.
Obviously. That's actually against the unwritten rules itself, right?
Yeah, that's true. But no, absolutely not. It's my job to get ahead in the count, regardless the score, regardless who's hitting, regardless how many people are on base. And I think 3-0 swinging is becoming more and more popular.
Yeah.
As the years go by. Yeah. And so, if you're going to throw a cookie 3-0 in today's game, I don't care what the score is, there's a good chance they're going to hit it. And you did it to the hottest hitter in baseball.
Right.
You earned it, man. You earned that ERA buster. So yeah, no, I would be super, super angry with myself. And full disclosure, I would for half a second, I would be mad at him. So I'd be like, dude, why? Come on, you shouldn't do that. Right? And then you bring it back and you're like, but I also suck. So yeah, that's kind of the mindset I would have, at least. I don't know why, especially they didn't even throw at him. They threw at Machado after. What did he do? I've always said, if you're going to retaliate, do it to the guy that did it, not to.
I agree. Some teammate. Yeah.
But there should be nothing to retaliate for in that given circumstance. It was just really stupid. I think a lot of frustration. It was against the Rangers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was just frustration on their end, which should not come out in violence. And just don't get behind 3-0 to one of the best hitters in baseball right now with the bases loaded. No matter the score, you just the stars align for you in the worst way possible right there, and you can't be mad about it.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah, you've got strong character. I think you've been resolute and you've stayed positive, and I think whether your future includes professional baseball or not, I think you'll do quite well for yourself. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, guys.